Sherry, the floor is all yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Poetry and Prose Father's Day edition. This is Sunday, the 9th of June, 2024. We have a list of um, established writers and members of the group. And with that, I would like to welcome Mr. Motilal to read a piece on Father's Day for us.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, okay. Thank you, Sherry. My piece is called Glimpses with Father. When I was about 11, I asked my mother why we were living far from my grandmother while our cousins were living near. She said that my grandfather, Bap, was vexed with my father, Pim Singh, because he had disobeyed him in getting married to my mother. He knew his father had other plans, as he had hinted that Bim should marry Kamin, the daughter of his friend Rup Singh, who was a rich man and who could help the couple build a house. Kamin was a nice girl, but Bim Singh was too smitten with my mother, Raju, whom he had met while working at the Bakal Bus Company. He was not given any land by his father, and so he moved out of the village. When Raju's brother Mak and some elders from the village came to speak with Bap, he was unshakable. No permission could be got from him. When Bhim Singh reached 21, he could do what he wanted, but are not given any permission for him to get married. Mark decided to seek the help of Mr. Rat. Many a time, when the father of the prospective groom did not agree to a wedding, Mr. Rat would turn up at the warden's office and claim to be the groom's father, if the groom was under 21. The warden once asked him how many sons he had. My parents got married at the Siparia warden's office. They did not have a traditional Hindu wedding. I remember my father taking my mother, sisters, and me for drives. He had bought his own car, a blue Ford Zephyr. He took us to the beach, the zoo, to see Diwali lights at Aranguez, the lookout on the Lady Young Road, and the upside down Hilton Hotel. I loved for him to drive fast and would ask him to pass the cars in front of us. He would say, "Sure, this is a Zephyr, that is a console," as he overtook with his higher powered car. Once he was teaching my mother to drive. Keep the bird in the center of the road, he instructed, the bird being an ornament on the bonnet of the car. My mother kept the bird in the center of the road, even when another car was approaching from the opposite direction. We screamed as my father quickly pulled the steering wheel and the car ended up on the drain. Driving lessons ended abruptly for that day. My father dressed well when he went to work as a taxi driver. Well-pressed khaki pants and white shirt and Dunlop white crepe sole shoes, the ones with the sponge lining to keep his feet comfortable. On the shelving under the dashboard, he kept a half-pound key pan for the coins he received. When he received $1, he put these in his pants pocket as he gave change. Every morning, he started working with the pan a quarter full after giving my mother most of the previous day takings to run the house. My father rarely disciplined us. This was left mostly to our mother, who would say, "Wait till your father gets home." He wore a broad leather belt. I remember getting 2 when I was in standard 3. He was checking my homework and there were several red X's. The girls never got licks, and I can remember this one time only I did. I inherited that belt, which I wear to this day. I cannot remember my father saying, "I love you," but he attended our school concerts, permitted us to go on outings, took us to sports meetings, and bought presents for birthdays and Christmas. When my parents started to build our new house, the money soon ran out. We had 3 rooms upstairs and a makeshift kitchen downstairs with no doors and windows for the living room. My mother was determined that we move in before Christmas of 1964. We could use the boards from the old house to build an upstairs kitchen and complete the house. For the next 2 years, my father would work to complete the house bit by bit. My father gave us room to grow. He left the taxi driving business to work with a contractor at the refinery. He worked for long hours, leaving home at 5:30 a.m. and returning at 5:30 p.m. Sometimes in the morning, if my mother was not finished cooking, I would go next door and ask Polly mother for 2 rotis, which Ma would give back later. On his return from work, after a bath, he would sit in his hammock downstairs with his dog Scotty until bedtime. I got a job as a learner refinery operator at Point-A-Pierre Refinery. We had an Austin Cambridge, which I was allowed to drive to work, taking my father and 2 neighbors. I had a girlfriend who worked at Shanker's Hardware in Duncan Village. I picked her up after work. My father would go in the back seat, allowing her to sit in the front. Sometimes the girlfriend would leave for home early on Fridays. One Friday, when she was not there, we stopped at CDL's bar for a drink. Bob, one of our neighbors, ordered half a Eclipse and a Pepsi and a stout for the boy, meaning me. My father said, "Stout for the boy? Bring a glass." He feel a those smelly mouth with rum when he come home after liming up the road. When I had an African girlfriend, my mother wasn't too pleased. My father reminded her, it takes sun and rain to make rainbow. He also made a ribald remark about the feline species. He said, "all cat black in the night," which did not quite amuse my mother. I recall when my father borrowed my car and returned without it. He had one too many. I found out he had left it, keys in the ignition, at Charlie's shop, and gone out with his friends on a drinking line. Sometimes as we get older, we think we are smarter than our fathers. I learned a valuable lesson. I took my car for repairs and the mechanic brought it home afterwards. Next morning, I had to take my mother to the market. There was a knock in the engine, and my father advised me not to drive the car as it seemed as if the mechanic had left something loose. I ignored him and paid the expensive price of extensive repairs. One incident that made me proud was when I saw my father reading with the Ramayana group at a neighbor's house. I never imagined he could read Hindi, much less translate the teachings. I wish that I had taken the time to learn more about my father. God bless you, Papa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Motilal. It was an excellent piece. I really like when you mentioned the car with the bird at the front. My uncle had a 280C with all those gadgets. Yes,
Yes, yes.
yes. All
Thank you,
right. So
Sherry.
you're welcome. So moving along, we have Cynthia. Welcome, Cynthia. Good evening.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I thought that I would write about a little bit about my father, since for Mother's Day I had written a little bit about my mother. So this morning I just put together a few things that stand out when I think of my father. One, my handwriting. When I was about 7 or 8, Daddy pointed out to me that my handwriting was untidy and leaning all over the place. So he painstakingly took a sheet of paper and ruled it so that he could write the letters on one line and I would copy them in the line thereunder. That worked very well. It helped a lot. He also illustrated to me how to hold my hand and keep my wrist loose enough to pivot easily to have a better command of forming my lessons. That was very helpful. To this day, people comment on my good handwriting, although with age and my increased use of the computer to write almost everything, my handwriting has deteriorated somewhat. Being organized and methodical. In the life we led, we had to be on the move often, so packing to travel played a key part. We made lists, and this practice eliminated the risk of forgetting items. To this day, even though I'm not sure I'll be traveling again, I have a list for a 3-day visit, such as a weekend in Tobago, or a list for a 10-day visit if I'm going maybe to Barbados or Martinique. It is just so much more efficient. You go down the list and make sure that you haven't omitted anything you must take, including your passport and things you have to pick up at the last minute. By extension, since I took to the computer like the proverbial duck to water, I have since 1998 kept my budget on a spreadsheet. I even have the formula set in so that I can tell at a glance whether and by how much my expenditure exceeds my income. That is a great help to me. I don't have to add every single time, when the month end comes and you have to pay bills. I just have it on the computer and it's set right in and it gives me the total. Now, the skill of driving, I mention this very often. Every single time I get into a car to drive, I thank my father. Just as painstakingly as he had taught me how to form the letters to improve my handwriting, he taught me how to drive. I do not mean simply the rudiments of getting the car to move and all that that entails, but he imparted to me such details as ensuring that at dusk or dawn I use car lights because visibility is lessened at those times. And I am not certain whether I was taught to go by intuition also, but I do possess that, and it has saved me much grief. I can remember that perhaps about 10 or 15 years ago, I was approaching the traffic light at the end of French Street in Port of Spain, and I sensed that a cyclist might come out. I probably glimpsed a little movement, and I felt that the cyclist was going to come out from between a row of parked cars. Sure enough, he did, and he bumped into me. Because I was going very slowly, all he hit was my bumper with no dire result. Of course, I ensured that he was all right before I continued on my way. My wrist suffered slightly, but nowhere else. Now, had I been going at a clip, that could have been a big accident. So my father's guidance has stayed with me all these years. He taught me to drive when I was 13, but of course I had to wait until the age of 17 to take the driving test. I have been driving all these years, and I will be 83 in August. Another thing that Daddy taught me was how to speak to a room full of people. Now, our life was bound up with the Methodist Church, so I could not escape having to deliver recitations or read passages from the Bible from time to time. Naturally, I suffered from stage fright. So Daddy told me to focus on someone at the back of the room to ensure that I could be heard from that spot. That has stood me in good stead, plus the fact that both parents instilled in me not to mumble. Speak up, throw your voice to the back so that everybody else in between will hear. So that's what I wrote down this morning, those few tips, because they are always in my mind when I think of my father. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's some great tips on what your father imparted to you, the knowledge that he imparted to you, and all our fathers, I'm sure, have shared their love to us. And now I open the floor to Althea. I welcome you to read.
Okay, before Althea go, I just want to make a little comment. There's some wonderful tips that Cynthia passed on for us, that lessons from her father. Also, about writing and the handwriting and penmanship. Oh boy. I wish I could write how I used to do in primary school when we had these double line books. Keep the common letters within the middle line and use the top and the bottom lines for guidance for your capital letters. Because sometimes we see some handwriting and sometimes I look at my own and I see, look how it has deteriorated. And I'm glad to know that Cynthia still has her excellent handwriting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Motilal, for sharing and for your input. We now invite Althea. Althea, are you there?
Yes, yes, I'm here. Okay. I'm reading two poems about my father. The first poem is entitled Becoming Gilberto, and the second poem is called No Telltale Voice. Okay, Becoming Gilberto. The nonagerian once feared for his sternness. Well, let me start again. The nonagerian once feared for his sternness walks unsteadily, each step directed by faith, each fragile limb aware that time has been generous. The old man, brown-faced from days of wrestling with the sun, looks thinner than in snapshots of younger years. The dye that veiled his age abandoned. A white crown celebrates longevity. Photos of his wizened, sagging face are no longer clear images. On the front room walls, black and white prints bear witness to the farmer, doorman, store manager, husband that he was, and the great-grandfather that he is. His siblings, ripe with illness and age, have already fallen, his firmly on a fourth generation. This family patriarch knows his time is rationed, has renounced his wild days, has given way to reason and ask that his children get closer. Her words long restrained, but the loving words they have hungered for jolt when they are heard. And they, loath to disappoint, carry into their veins, feel prudence reigning in, slowly become Gilberto. Okay, the second poem, No Telltale Voice. On the phone, Dad's voice sounds the same, a crisp, high-pitched Antiguan voice, reflecting optimism in the face of challenge. It does not betray his years, does not mirror the 9 decades plus he has survived, living as farmer, fisherman, union leader, hotel porter, store manager. He fought battles with nature, droughts and hurricanes. There is that epic tale of how he fought fierce winds, held on tight to a rope that bound him to his home, and secured our safety by clearing life-threatening debris. He is a man who started again, made another island his home, lifted himself and family up, showed us how to rise again from the rubble of rugged living. His voice, full of life, is clear, a storyteller's voice, filled with the passion of passing on folklore he was raised on. It carries the beauty of green grass in sunlight, catching our attention like birds chirping and celebrating after long-awaited rain. His voice betrays the news he is about to share. Come home, my time has come. I know it in heart, in bones. Come home, I am dying, he says. His voice, certain in its telling, is megaphone loud in my head. I do not question his claim. His truth rings crystal clear. I pack my bags. Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Althea. It was a wonderful read. I loved how you, in the first poem, you mentioned how, your father got browned out with the sun. And I can relate. My father is a farmer. And you see how, his hard work, how it pays off. And, how you describe your father, how he went to another island and start over with his family and rise again and build over. It says a lot about, and he's a very strong person.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that is very true.
Yes, it says a lot
Yes,
about him and what the knowledge he would have imparted on to his children just by his mere actions.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Well,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
they were all role models on how to survive.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. And I especially like the part when you talk about the passing on of the folklore and the stories.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that that must have influenced your writing very much.
Yes.
Indeed, I think about my
Um,
grandmother the same
part,
way.
yes, yes, it did. Yeah, it certainly did.
That
Mm.
was a wonderful tribute. Thank you for sharing.
I agree with Mr. Tilal. It's a wonderful tribute. I would like to leave the floor open for anybody who would like to make any little remark, any little comment on their memories or anything that they would like to share. Going once, going twice, sold. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
as Mutilal said, my father is he's now dead, a, a strong influence on me becoming a writer, because every evening we listened to these folk tales, or they also made fun of people in the village where they lived, and told jokes about there was a man who was blind in one eye and couldn't see out of the other, and jokes like that. Or there's um, a man came to borrow money from one guy, and he asked him, uh, he said, to the other man, "Can you lend me $10?" And the man said he couldn't hear, you know. And then the man went to the other ear and said, "Can you lend me $100?" And then he said, "Go back to the $10 ear." So, go back to the $10 ear so he could lend him $10 instead of $100. And yeah, there was a lot of humor and a lot of ghost stories and fables, and we grew up listening to them. And I think sometimes I think these stories are responsible for a lot of bedwetting that went on, because some of the ghost stories we heard, we were afraid to go to bed or to get up at night, and or stories about long ago, where they said children who wet their bed, they tied cans on their feet and marched them round the village, and you can hear them clanging going around the village, so that everyone knew that they wet their bed. And so that was a life learning lesson. And well, hopefully that has all died out, because it's a very negative way to teach someone a lesson. Yeah, so there are lots and lots of things that we learn from our fathers and mothers too, of course.
Thank you, Althea, for sharing. And your father influenced you becoming a writer, and that's great. Just as Cynthia's father, influenced her in handwriting, Mr. Motilal, his father influenced, him driving, and so I really love what you said and the poems about your father. And thank you very much for sharing.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, so now we would like to call on Mr. Vishnu to share his piece on his father.
Okay. You hear me now, I guess? Yeah. Well, I thought people would be writing about their fathers, so I was in a quandary as to if I too should talk about my father, which doesn't have any different ring to what people have said before. But I wanted from my child's perspective, and that's why I was telling my friend last night, I'm going to the net to look for two stories, two poems. I found two. And the poems are what a child at that time thought about the father. A very idealistic kind of view, but nevertheless a view. The first one is called A Father's Legacy. Oh, by the way, these are not my poems. They are poems I got on the net, and I can't acknowledge the poets because their names weren't given. So I'm just reading them. First one, A Father's Legacy. Dad, you have been my guiding light, teaching me to be brave and fight. With every challenge, you stood tall, instilling in me the will to give it all. Your wisdom, a beacon in the night. Your love, a shield, strong and bright. You taught me honor, respect, and grace. To never give up, run life's race. On this Father's Day, I want you to know, in my heart, your love will forever reside, a legacy of strength by your side. So that's the short of the poem, and they're all rhyming poems. The other one is called My Superhero. Not much different from the first one, but again, it's how a child sees the father. In your eyes, I see a reflection of me, a father-son bond, a destiny to decree. You have shown me how to be bold and brave, to navigate the challenges and pave my own way. You have taught me to stand tall and fight, to never back down all my might. Your love and guidance have changed my soul, a father's love making me whole. On this special day, I honor you, dear Dad, for the sacrifices made the times we have had. You are my hero, my role model true. A dad like you, there's none I'd ever rule. So that's the end of my two short pieces there. But when people talk about the influence of their father in growing up, in my own days, when my father had lost his job, that's when I was about 12 years old or something, he would go to the garden at the back of the house, and he will take my eldest brother and I to pull out the grass, to take the cut fig leaves and throw in the compost, as you say, by the fig root, or water plants, pull out grass, help trim the extra dried leaves on the tomato plants, that sort of thing. So in a way, I would think my father was teaching us a bit of discipline. Even like before he came from work, we'd be outside there, sweeping the yard, picking up the mango leaves, things like that. Or maybe going to the standpipe and filling water with buckets. And as I grew up and I began to think about Pa when Pa had died, and I'm wondering, like when I went to school too, and they were so disciplined in school, the primary school I went to, very similar like my father. So in a combination of two, my father and my school, and I would still see my primary school as a kind of father figure, like in my own life then. So very much as people are saying that the father's influence, the difference in my own growing up is that when my father died, and I don't want to become autobiographical here, but just I'm saying something. When my father died, my mother took over exactly what my father used to do. The same coming home, tidying yourself, eating a piece of roti and something, getting around the table, put on the shade light, do your home lesson. It just continued. So in my case, my father and my mother were like father-mother combination. I can hardly differentiate in big ways what my father did, what my mother didn't do. The two of them, in a sense, combined to father us at home then. So when I read these two poems here, it very much reminds me of my own growing up in Esperanza, very quiet village east of California. Okay, thank you. That's my piece.
Thank you, Mr. Vishnu, for sharing. It was a wonderful two pieces on your father. And I like how you said you had to sweep the yard after school before your father come home. I remember my father having me sweep the yard, and he would make me sweep the yard again if a leaf fell where I had already swept. So I'll have to sweep the yard twice. I guess that's their way of discipline and instilling values into you. Yes. All right, so now we leave the floor open to Miss Heather. Miss Heather, are you with us?
Yes, I am here waiting.
Welcome, Miss Heather.
Okay, I also have two pieces. The first one is, I'm 3 days ago, the world looked at the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and a year after D-Day happened 80 years ago, the Nazi death camps began to be open up, and the inmates there released. I'm going to read a poem that I wrote in relation to a show that I saw on television in 2008, where a young son decided to go to the death camp that his father was at, because his father never spoke of that experience in his life. And he wanted to go and find out more about his father by visiting this awful place. And this place is Gross Rosen. It's a concentration camp named after the town of the same name in Poland. So this is my piece. The son retraces his father's footsteps at Gross Rosen, in a place now empty, the hollow sounds of his footsteps echoing through the darkened hallways and silent rooms, stark walls where once throngs languished in human filth and hunger, fitfully sleeping and perhaps dreaming far into a future they would never know, a dream of fleeting freedom, a portent of a time to come, where once a young boy stood between life and death, filled with hope and fear, looking toward a time he would never see, when his own son would walk upon the paths he had trod at Gross Rosen to try to come and find him. I found this is a tribute to fatherhood, because he saw so much in what was missing in his father that he had to visit this awful place to try to find his father. This is my first piece. I would like to do another one, and this is closer to home. A friend of mine who went to QRC when my father was principal just wrote a book called Boy Days. You're seeing it probably in the opposite, but anyway, in it, he pictures Queen's Royal College when my father was principal there. And this is his reminiscence that I will read for you. Despite these minor distractions, I passed my first CE exam for Fatima College. I wasn't entirely pleased, since that was my third choice. I persuaded my father to pull some strings and get me transferred to Queen's Royal College. All my male relatives had gone there. Plus, I didn't want to go to school with a silly name like Fatima. Who was Fatima anyway? The QRC principal at the time was Mr. Lal too, affectionately known as the Lal. Though short and round in stature, he was universally feared and respected. Once, as often was the case, we had a free period with no supervision. Some guys at the back started a poker game using real money. It was then that the Lal entered the room. The ones who saw him immediately brought out their Spanish books and pretended to be doing vocab. However, one miserable fellow named Gosain, whose back was to the door, didn't notice his presence. He continued dealing cards while smoking a funny-looking cigarette. Sensing that something was amiss, he glanced up and saw the Lal glaring down at him. He took a long last drag of his joint, stumped it out and followed the principal to his office for a caning. For a really serious transgression, a master could send a student for the black book. He would enter the offense and the boy would have to take it back to the office. Depending on what was written, the Lal would sometimes cane the offender over the PA system. Most guys would walk slowly around the building a few times before handing in the book, hoping, like a boxer, to be saved by the bell. I firmly believe the fortunes of a school lie entirely with the principal. In those days, you had Father Lyfook at CIC, Anna Mahes at SAGS, Miss Sherlin in Bishops, Mrs. Valerie in St. Francois. These were not people you trifled with. Keith went to Trinity and they were intimidated by their principal, Mr. Phelps. It was rumored he was a tank commander who fought against Rommel at Turburg. I asked Keith, does he beat people? No. Does he shout at you? No. What does he do? He looks at you. The end. That's just a little snippet of what life was like in the 70s in Port of Spain.
I like how, he just looked at the boy and he instilled fear into him. That's all it took.
Exactly. And now today children beating up teachers.
Yes, so true. And I also like, I being my father's child, you always expect your father to pull strings for you to make the impossible happen. Yes, you're always looking at your father as a superhero. Yes.
In the same book by Jerry Barrow, he lives up by Valsine there. He was a BWI pilot. He's retired now. But his father was Dr. Barrow, who worked with, who did the autopsy on Dalip Singh's wife. Dalip Singh had killed his wife. I don't know if you all, some people would remember that story.
Thelma
So,
Haynes.
yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
remember
So,
that.
yeah. So, it's that Barrow family, is kind of well known for that more than anything. And that story is in the book as well. So that's a new book. I'm hoping to bring him to our group, but he have all his fingers in so many pies, but it's a very wonderful book and very entertaining. So I just thought I'd read a snippet from it.
Heather, you had a poem a few days ago on Facebook about your grandfather. And really, I was hoping that you'd have done that today, but
Which one's
I don't
that?
know.
I can't remember which one is that.
You one about your grandfather when he had that switch to Hindi in his older years.
Oh yes, yes. Uh yeah, that's true. Well, I can I don't know where I have that. I never
Well,
printed it out.
maybe later on you could, but that
Yeah,
you had
after everyone's done, if there's time left, yeah. In the
there were
meantime, I'll
so
try to
many
get,
comments on that poem. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Sherry.
Right. Thank you. Right now, we'd like to call on Alicia. Alicia, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Welcome, Alicia.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Well, I did not grow up with my father. I never knew the man. And I don't think in any way I would have been shortchanged, so to speak. I remember when I did common entrance, my mother would have taken me to the San Juan area, because that's where he was originally from, to see if she could locate him. And then when we went there, some of the folks that she knew there from living in the community said that he had passed away. I didn't feel any sadness or anything at that point in time because, like I said, I didn't know him. I never knew him, never saw him. So he had passed away, and I was like, okay, then let's go home. So over the years, however, I have had wonderful role models, male role models in my life, whether in the church or at school or what have you. And, they would have probably influenced my idea of manhood and maleness. And of course, I would have had in my mind the kind of person that I think a father should be. I do not have a piece on father. I never wrote one. I promised my colleagues at work that I will do one this week, since I write poetry, right? That I will do one this week so that they can have one to share with the children. But in all honesty, for some reason or other, I have never thought about writing a poem about fathers. And so I never did one. And so when I decided to come this afternoon, I said I would do a piece called Normal People Scare Me. I would have grown up with my mother, of course, and so my mother would have been instrumental in a lot of things that would have happened in my life. But as my book, by the name of my book goes, Poetic Juices, I am going to put a little different flavor in the mix this afternoon. All right, so Normal People Scare Me. The genesis of this piece is dual. One, when I wrote this piece, there was a young man before the courts for sexual grooming. Of course, we know that to be where a person of influence would try to get a minor, they tend to engage in inappropriate behaviors to get this minor to be interested in him or her. And of course, oftentimes the overlays are sexual. The other aspect of it is a t-shirt that I have that actually has those words, Normal People Scare Me. And I was traveling very late one night, and there was this gentleman who was passing in a vehicle, waiting for a taxi. And he stopped, and from the moment he started to speak, I heard this slurred speech. He seemed to be drunk under the influence. And he tried to pick me up, and I just ignored him. And then he said, family, I normal, And my response to him was, well, normal people scare me, And so this piece was birthed out of those two experiences. So here goes. Normal people scare me, said the caption on her tee. And I had to stop and ask because it piqued my curiosity. Please explain what normal is, especially to me. And so she launched into a diatribe that explained normalcy. Look around you, she said, at the people on the streets. Some of them are smartly dressed from their head to their feet. But there is a darkness that is just lurking underneath, that manifests itself without a need for trick or treat. It was a normal young man that was engaged in sexual grooming of a 12-year-old girl that he appeared to be stalking. A normal young man who was simply pretending that he wanted to be a friend, but he was really lying. Normal people are using the power of the gun to destroy one another because of disrespect or fun. Yes, fun, I tell you. As for some, it is a gang initiation, and it's normal for you to kill someone if you want to join. Ladies of the night walk the street normal, prostituting their bodies and selling sex very casual. Then these same ladies may have a day job that's quite formal and may end up dating your son in a relationship that's quite normal. She stopped and looked at me with eyes intensely wide, and I could see that honestly she had nothing to hide. She continued after a while, and this she did confide, that many normal people in sweet tea and tea did abide. Normal people talk on their phones while driving in their cars. Normal people avoid traffic by driving on the shoulder. Normal people curse you and disrespect your mother. And if you retaliate, the consequences make you shudder. So yes, normal people scare me as I go along life's way. As normal people do not always make their evil play, but they may be plotting and scheming. And suddenly one day, you end up being the victim of a normal person's power play. And so she concluded, when next you see my tea, don't think I'm wearing it to bring attention to me. Far from it, my brother. It's truly a tragedy, because in all honesty, normal people scare me. Thank you.
I love
That's
it.
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. That's a wonderful poem.
Thank you.
Oh gosh, yeah. Huh.
Yes. I love your poem. I love, like, how you said normal people, and we see it in our everyday lives where normal
Yes, we
people
do. We do.
show up. And
Yes,
Yeah.
when you said a girl could be working in the night and then have a formal job on the day, working
Yes.
normal, normal.
and then, bringing it back to Father's Day in the beginning, when you said that you have a lot of people be dressed formally from head to toe, and they have
Correct.
very dark shadow. It
Yes.
in the realm of Father's Day, normally you would see a lot of fathers their skin get dark during the day working in the sun, but they have a
Yes.
very
Yes.
charm in the sense that they're always being protective.
Mhm.
I must say I am saddened by you being not able to know who your father was, but you seem to be a very strong person, and I love your poem.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes,
So I
that
am
poem was
going to write a
certainly,
piece this week about fathers. So I may share it with you the next time.
that
Because
poem
folks have
was
been
certainly
saying you
more
need to
than
write a
normal.
piece.
That
You need
was
to write a piece about
extraordinary.
fathers. Thank you,
That
Mr.
poem was more
Motival.
than normal. It was extraordinary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing, Alisa, before you go, can you tell me where we can get your book?
Presently, you get it through me, but from Wednesday, it's going to be available at Scribbles and Quills in Lunchbox Shogunas. And hopefully by the end of the week, it will also be available at Shock and Stock at Movie Town.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And I hope that you will become a
Yes,
regular
yes.
on Poetry and Prose, and I'll be sending you a friend request.
No problem, no problem. And this week, of course, the book is available for just 120 for Father's Day and for students who are graduating. So if you make your order by Friday, you will get it for the 120.
Okay, and where in Chaguanas again?
Scribbles and Quill, but that will be from Wednesday.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
I'm sure that some of our members here would be looking for your book. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Alicia, thank you for that extraordinary piece. It was really brilliant. Thank you. And
You're most welcome.
congratulations on the book.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so now I would be inviting myself to read.
Sherry,
So,
you call Alisa Janki. I think she's
Alicia.
scheduled. She's here.
Alicia, do
Hi,
you have?
good
Alisa Janki. Where Alisa going, boy?
Hi, afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Hi, afternoon. Well, great pieces so far, everyone. It's nice hearing all these different pieces on different topics, and well, I know the theme is Father's Day. I don't really have a piece specifically that I wrote about, fathers. Um, oh, but my father, well, he died when I was 13 years and 11 months. He died like in August of 1994, and I would have been 14 years old in September. And he died during the vacation. So it was like, he died on a Thursday and his funeral was a Monday. So a lot of family and so on came over the weekend to go to his funeral and so on. And he was pretty young when he died. He was in his 30s. And although he didn't live long enough to see me become an adult, I would say that he did have some influence upon my life, especially like education wise. He was very particular about my performance academically in school, and he used to help me with schoolwork a lot. He he was working and studying. He did A levels on his own. He would buy his own textbooks and study on his own and so on. And I don't know if probably that's why I'm an educator today. And another thing as well, like he used to carry us on drives. So I suppose that's where I got my thirst for adventure from, because when I was small, he used to carry us all over the place. I mean, well, when I say all over, not like very far, but places in South, we would always go for a drive. The furthest my father ever took me to was Cedros. So like a morning we left home very early. We packed up food and so on, and we took a very long drive to Columbus Bay in Cedros. That was my first visit to Cedros, and I mean, it's a pity that that was in the early 1990s. So, like, people back then never really used to take much photos and stuff. So I kind of have that one regret that, we didn't have a camera and we didn't take any pictures of, Cedros back then. And well, it didn't have any Google Maps, so we kind of got lost on the way and had to ask for directions. But that was quite an adventure, and I think it's because of my father, carrying us to different places and stuff. I got this liking for going places and exploring and that kind of thing. So yeah, so I think I mean, even though my father only was present for almost 14 years of my life, I mean, he did have, an influence on certain aspects of my life and stuff like that. So, and it's always good to have a father around, because like the family was afraid of him, and they never used to really tell us anything. But after my father died, we saw a change in the family. Like the family used to, some of my family members, they would treat us badly because they figure, well, a man is not in the house anymore, so they could tell us what they want and do us what they want. Because my father was a very strict person, and people were afraid of him. So yeah, and well, he was from La Romaine. His his grandfather, sorry, I think he said his grandfather was born on the Fatal, well, not the Fatal Razak, but one of the ships that came across from India to Trinidad. I don't know very, very much about my great grandparents on my dad's side, but it's something that I would like to, look into, and you know, uh, and well, my grandfather, that's my dad's father. Well, he was the only grandfather I knew, because my mother's father, he died before I was born, so I never met him. But my grandfather was a very avid reader. He used to like to read plenty. Like every time he visit, he always reading a book. So I think that's where I get the liking for reading as well. So sorry, I don't have a piece specifically on Father's Day, but that's my contribution where, the fathers in my life are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia, for sharing. That's a wonderful memories that you shared with us, and you should be proud of that. And that in itself is a story, of how you grew up, and the strict role model that he was, especially where family were concerned. All right, thank you, Alicia. And now I would like to call on Gersha. Gersha?
Come in, Gershon. Move along. Okay. Sharif, Gosha, step out. Well, you just come in and then call Harold, and by that time, we'll get Gosha back.
Okay, so I would like to invite myself to read now. Hi, everybody. I'm Sherry. So I am going to read a poem. The name of the poem is The Gift, and it was written by Lee Young Lee. So here goes. To pull the metal splinter from my palm, my father recited a story in a low voice. I watched his lovely face and not the blade. Before the story ended, he'd removed the iron silver I thought I died from. I can't remember the tale, but heard his voice still, a well of dark water, a prayer, and I recall his hands, two measures of tenderness he laid against my face, the flames of discipline. He raised above my head. Had you entered that afternoon, you would have thought you saw a man planting something in a boy's palm. A silver tear, a tiny flame. Had you followed that boy, you would have arrived here, where I bent over my wife's right hand. Look how I shaved her thumbnail down so carefully. She feels no pain. Watch as I lift the splinter out. I was 7 when my father took my hand like this, and I did not hold that shard between my fingers and think, metal that will bury me. Christen it little assassin, or going deep from my heart, and I did not fill up my wound and cry, death visited here. I did what a child does when he is given something to keep. I kissed my father. Thank you. That's my piece. That's from the internet. Now, I would like to call on Mr. Harold. Mr. Harold, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
I can go. Okay.
Hello.
Okay, sure.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. I was trying to get my mic off of mute and it wasn't coming off for some reason.
That's okay. That's okay.
But I can
so we
go
now,
whenever you can fit me in.
yes, you can go now, Versha. That's okay.
Oh, I don't want to take Harold's spot.
Okay, sure. Mr. Harold, are you
Yes,
up?
I'm here.
Okay, you can go ahead and read your
right.
piece.
Well, first of all, I have to say that I have no recollection of my father. He died when I was 3. He was from Barbados. And my stepfather, I have rather mixed feelings about, so I won't be writing about him. However, the story that I will write or read, or at least part of it, a very little bit of part of it, does concern a father, and that happens to be me, although you won't hear that from the beginning of what I'm writing. It's about a lady I knew, and as a consequence, I decided I would write about her because she had a great influence on what happened to her and also on myself. It's in my book, The Narrative Voice. Here's the book that you can see, which is available on Amazon. All my books are available on Amazon. So this story is called Barbara Nom de Plume. She had no sooner opened the door than an enormous cloud of acrid black smoke escaped from her apartment. Exhibiting an alarmingly singular disdain for what was obviously some domestic catastrophe, she warbled, "Yes, may I help you?" I was wondering, I began, but I was so taken aback by the odor, the smoke, and especially her unflappable attitude and appearance that I stopped. She wore a flowered pink muumuu turned inside out, and enclosing her naked feet were clear plastic grocery bags. The bags were secured around her ankles with rubber bands, and on her arms and around the tips of her fingers, there must have been at least 3 dozen adhesive bandages in various shapes, sizes, and colors. Her hair was silver, closely cropped, almost shaved, and from behind granny glasses, beady blue eyes cagily stared at me, staring at the bags, the rubber bands, the bandages, and what was left of her hair. Instead of being affronted by my lack of good manners, she laughed and said, "You were wondering about what? My stylish plastic slippers, perhaps?" She giggled, coyly lifted the hem of her muumuu, and as though posing for Vogue, She had allowed a plastic bag ankle to turn fetchingly. Pursing her lips, she looked at her ankle, then at me, and winked mischievously. In a clear and precise voice, she said, I have sensitive feet, and they get cold easily. I wear the plastic because it keeps in the heat. I keep grocery bags just for that purpose. The rubber band I get from the Daily News the paperboy leaves. And no, I haven't tied the rubber bands on too tight. That wouldn't matter anyway. My circulation is lousy. She cocked her head to one side and paused for the briefest of moments, as though making sure that I was following every syllable correctly before she continued. The moo-moo is inside out because my skin is extremely sensitive to seams and to thread. Anything rough makes me break out in a horrible rash. That's why I have all these bandages. Aren't they a technicolor extravaganza? They're a damn nuisance, I can tell you. I only wear soft cotton and silk, and everything has to fit loosely. It's a chore. She paused again, this time to catch her breath, which had become labored. She followed her difficult breathing with an ingenuous smile, almost, I thought, to deflect an obvious problem. And why, you must be thinking, is my hair cropped so unfashionably? She asked, sounding now very like the enthusiastic whisperings of Sir David Attenborough, while allowing himself to be affectionately mauled by gorillas, all for the edification and amusement of his television audience. Are you attending? She said abruptly. Yes, oh yes, I said, wondering how gorilla-like I appeared to her. I was just thinking how you sounded like Sir David, but I stopped when she shot me a fierce glance. Sir David, she asked, her eyebrows way up. Who's he? Sir David Attenborough, I meant to say. Oh, a lovely, kind man. I met him some years ago. No vanity whatsoever about his personal appearance. He and I are very much alike that way. You see, she continued in her Attenborough voice, I don't like messing with my hair. I have no vanity about my appearance. I like to be comfortable. I'm not British, but I am eccentric. What's wrong with being comfortable and being eccentric? If it bothers you, if it bothers anybody, you can plain piss off. She stepped toward me and with a petite index finger gently nudged my chin upward. I had been so agog with what she had been telling me. All that unasked for information was strangely charming. I must have looked like an open-mouthed fool, and now, embarrassed, I blushed. Seeming not to notice, she removed her glasses, smiled, and said, So you were wondering what? Do you have any change? I asked her. I'm out of quarters for the washing machine. That, she said, is the most ordinary statement I've heard today. Is it? I'm sorry. There's no need to be sorry for being ordinary. You might apologize for being dull, but I haven't found you dull. So don't apologize for that, she instructed. However, what I use for my laundry if I give you my quarters? Sorry, I said, I didn't think. Ignoring my remark, she stuck out her right foot and turning it to left and right, inspected it with some admiration. But instead of commenting favorably on its appearance, she said, no, this just won't do. These grocery bags are quite inferior to those from the Mama Papa store. Fascinating, I stammered. Yes, well, I'll go to the supermarket and get some quarters there. I'm sorry to have troubled you. No trouble, she said. I'll go with you. You won't mind an old lady tagging along, will you? My goddamn car broke down 2 weeks ago, or was it 3 weeks ago? I think it was suffering from asthma. It sounded asthmatic. Since then, I've been shagging it. I'm sorry, what? Walking, she explained. Hard on legs. You see, at my advanced age of decrepitude, varicose veins. I think I've varicose arteries, too. Hell of a word, varicose. It really should be pronounced varicosa. At least it would be more exotic than what it really is, which is a bloody nuisance. Is that a pun? I think it is. Then again, perhaps not. She chuckled. Hell, I'm 76 and look every year of it, don't you think? So do you mind if I go with you? No, not at all. I said, I'm happy to help you in any way I can. She squinted, poked me in the chest with a finger and said, I am not a bag lady. A bag lady? I said, I'm sorry, I didn't think you were. Thank you, she said, and please stop saying you're sorry for things you've no need to be sorry for. I'll do my best. Good, she said, smiling warmly. You're probably wondering why an old woman is giving you all this information and advice. You, a total stranger as you think you are, as you think I am. Well, we aren't strangers, not at all. Why should we be? I live here, you live across the hall, we're on the same planet, we're both Homo sapiens. If you were a Pongo pygmaeus, then we might be strangers. And then again, we might not. What's a Pongo pig? What's it? Orangutan, big ape, lives in Borneo. Orangutan, the Bornean word, means forest man. Isn't that remarkable? Don't tell me primitive peoples don't have a clue about evolution. To enhance her statement, she scratched her sides with her hands, bent her knees, and gnashed her teeth, presumably like an orangutan. With the pink muumuu, the bandages, the closely cropped hair, and the plastic bags, the effect might have startled an orangutan, as it did me. She straightened up and winked. I need bananas, she said. And as though to salvage some decorum, she added with mock solemnity, and bread, the staff of life. I just burnt some goddamn toast. I can smell it. Nothing like discussing the obvious, she said. I began to say I'm sorry, but she gave me a cautionary stare, so I said I should introduce myself. No need for that, she interrupted. I've seen your name on the mailbox. You can learn a lot about people from their mailbox names. Intrigued, I asked, can you? She hunched her narrow shoulders into a shrug and said, yes, you can. Did you learn anything about me from reading my mailbox name? With no hesitation whatever, she said, you're lonely and sad, but I didn't come to that opinion from reading your mailbox name. I've observed your comings and goings. You're like many people who let life knock the wind out of their sails. I believe that is the correct cliche, wind out of their sails. Before I could protest what I knew to be true, she offered her bandaged right hand to me. Instinctively, I reached out and held it. My name is Barbara, she said. Barbara nom de plume. Nom de plume, doesn't that mean a made-up name, a pen name? She nodded, stepped forward, and whispered her real name in my ear. Then she stepped back and announced with a girlish giggle, you must not tell a soul. I won't ever, I promise. Don't be patronizing, she scolded. I haven't told anyone else here what my real name is, and I won't. But then why tell me? You have a kind face. Oh, well, I thank you for that, I said, but isn't that your name on your mailbox? That is not my name, she snapped. That is my husband's name, my ex-husband, my dear departed. It's a name perfectly suitable for mailboxes, lock boxes, security boxes. As for me, I recently moved to Palouse. I've been here now how many months? 2, no, 3. I was living in Key West, but the tourists there have pretty much taken over, and you know what they are. They're charm stealers. They suck any place dry of charm right down to the goddamn marrow. Old Key West is long gone. Hemingway, Tennessee Williams, when they died, Old Key West died with them. So I closed my eyes, put my finger on the map, and here I am, clear across the goddamn country in Washington State. There'll be no more traveling for me. Now let's go for groceries and those precious quarters we so zealously hoard in order to keep ourselves hygienically presentable. Or to put it bluntly, do our never-ending goddamn wash and dry. I'll wait by your vehicle. I know the one because I've watched you drive it. She closed the door in my face.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Howard. That was amazing. I laughed listening to the entire piece.
Well, for those of you who know, the Palouse is a very vast area in southeastern Washington state, known for barley and especially wheat fields and lentils. For mile after mile, all you're seeing are wheat fields. It's a gorgeous country. And that's where Washington State University is located, where I went to school.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harold. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
I love that character. That's what Harold.
I like when she posed like if she was modeling for Vogue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The descriptions are really, really riveting, quite vivid. So while you are reading, I am imagining, she's hunching her shoulders. She's using a petite index finger to raise his chin. The descriptions are awesome.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Well,
So
I should tell you that the story actually had a rather sad ending.
Oh.
because she actually made me aware of some family matters at the time that I needed to sort out. But this is the lady, she and I went to see a motion picture in a cinema, and she died during the course of the movie. When the film ended and the lights came up and I turned to ask her how she enjoyed it, I discovered that she had died. And yeah, I said, years later, I thought, well, I have to write about this because it was such an extraordinary thing to happen. And she was quite an extraordinary lady, really was, really quite extraordinary.
And she made quite an impact on you, you went and looked at a movie together, you entertained her conversation, and you became friends in the end, not so?
Oh, yes, we were very, very dear friends. Yeah, she was my neighbor. And it was really quite extraordinary because the afternoon that we went to the cinema, we went to see a movie called Life is Beautiful, the Roberto Benigni film, Italian film. But I changed the movie in the story about her. But yeah, it was really quite an afternoon. One of the interesting things was that she was a member of the Norwegian Merchant Marine for many years, and she left the Merchant Marine to spend about 20 years living in Papeete in Tahiti. And she told me, and which I put in the story, that she got tired of all those blondes. She wanted to see some brunettes. And I remember when the paramedics came for her body in the cinema, all of the paramedics were brunettes. And I remember seriously thinking, well, I think Barbara must be very happy because for attending her body, they're all brunettes.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Harold. And it was nice of you, you made a really good friend. Sometimes we look at the older folks and we pass them by and we don't think much of them, but she let you know that even though at her age she was young at heart and she was living
very
her.
much so. Oh, very much so. Yes, indeed.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. I think it was Heather. Heather, you were supposed to get back to us if you found your piece on your grandfather.
I did, but I wondered if Gusha wanted to go next, and I'll go after her.
Sure. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Hi, Gusha.
Okay. Hi. Sure, I can go next. It's just a short poem. All right. It's untitled as of now. Eluded by the conversation that came before, unable to capture what came after. The middle, I remember. My grandfather looking at my roped braids hanging down my back. Your hair is really your beauty, he told me. For reasons only understood by my childlike mind, I threatened to cut it all off. My grandfather laughed. No, I don't want an ugly grandchild. A tantrum ensued that the adults around had no time for. Wasted tears. How must I have looked? Unable to even choose my clothes, much less control the length of my hair. He said, all right, we'll cut it, and you'll be ugly. Teasing was Papa's way. I can't remember when my father entered. He lifted me, that I remember. I rested my head on his shoulder, tears still running down my face. His words, I don't remember. Probably telling me I could cut my hair if I want. Probably telling me not to study Papa. Probably telling me, don't let them see you cry. I remember my breathing calmed. I remember looking down at the adults sitting in the living room, having conversations I can't remember and wasn't involved in. I remember, though, feeling like I won. That's my share.
Thank you.
Nice, very nice, Gersha. Yes, thank you.
Yes, as a child, the older folks in the house had a way of putting things across there to make you stop and think if you had a choice in anything. I remember that. Yes, thank you for sharing, Lucia. Heather,
What a victory, Lucia.
Yeah, that was my grandfather's way, though. He always used to tease us with something. I don't know why. He just always used to. That was his way. And if you cried or get on, he tease you even more. So,
oh, thank
but
you,
he
Lucia.
always came in.
Yes. Okay. So, Heather, are you there?
Yes, yes, I'm all set.
Okay, great.
So,
The floor is
Motila, the title is Are Dada. I think that is Oh God or Oh My Father in Hindi. Is that right? Motilal there? Or maybe not. Anyway, this is what I
Yes,
took it.
yes,
Hi, I may know as
yes,
well.
yes. Oh, my father.
Oh My Father. Okay. So the title of the piece is Are Dada. It's Hindi. And this is about my grandfather. He came from India in 1881 at the age of 4. But before that, he um, was in Farrukhabad in the United Provinces of India. And he traveled with his parents across the plains to Calcutta to take the ship to Trinidad. So here is my poem. The small boy stood at the spot where the Hooghly River meets the Bay of Bengal. Are Dada, he whispered, overwhelmed by the vista, the throngs of people, the ships on the water stretching into forever. He, without knowing, yet the epic import of the journey somehow imprinted on his psyche. He'd heard that phrase from birth, when he was ripped from his mother's belly, he crying out, Are Dada, praying to Lord Shiva for mercy. Then, as she held the child again, Are Dada, this time free of pain, in wonderment and joy. That phrase became a part of life. When his mother wrung her hands over the empty cupboard, or his father came home empty-handed from the fields, dried out and blighted from arid winds and toxic pools of sullied water. On the train from Farrukhabad across the plains of Uttar Pradesh to Calcutta, Are Dada resonated again. What have we done? His parents wondered, in choosing to flee, to go where none had gone before, across the Kalapani, seeking a new life, a world away from home. The ship resounded with the cries, Are Dada, the sick lying in filth, the dead flung overboard into the watery depths, the living barely alive. 3 months long, the journey seemingly never ending, the ship tossed upon the unforgiving ocean. Then, land at last, a new life in a strange place. Servant barracks, backbreaking work, unmerciful masters, a new hell, and no way back to family, to home, to all that was familiar. Just endless toil in smoke and haze under the unrelenting sun. The boy ran free around the plantation. Sent to a Christian school, he thrived. He learned the white man's culture, spoke the white man's English, read the white man's literature, and worshiped the white man's God. No more cries of Are Dada resonated in his life. He walked upon this new land for 77 years. He learned not to take the Lord's name in vain. He fathered a dynasty, educated his sons and daughters. He accrued land, wealth, and fame. His new God served him well. Then, as he lay dying in the house at Pinal, pain racked his body. He who had stood at the Hooghly River as it flowed into the Bay of Bengal in what seemed a lifetime ago, he cried out that long forgotten haunting cry, rattling through his body. Are Dada, retrieved from the recesses of a childhood memory. The end. I was 7 years old. I used to hear him crying. I was out by the cow pen. Motilal, you know the property by Rat's house. You could hear him.
Yes, yes.
It was that loud. And that went on for a good while until he died. But it was a visceral urge to return to the Hindi that he had forsaken in becoming a Christian. And he didn't choose to become a Christian. He was just maybe 5, 6 years old, and the missionaries, they just took the whole class and baptized everybody. So he kind of became a Christian by default, but it propelled him upward to becoming a teacher and a minister and going the way of the Presbyterian mission.
Well,
So
Heather, your family left a legacy in terms of education in this country. Your father was principal at QRC, your grandfather was a head teacher and all that. Just last week, we were doing something at the Mud House Museum, and I was talking to lady, what's the name? Rajwanti Bullock. They of
oh yes.
yes, and Rajwanti. But while we were there, another group came in who were members of the Tilakdari family, the ladies.
Yes.
And we started to talk. As a matter of fact, I had one of the one of the ladies, well, she was up, she told me she's 80 something. She said she is a Tilakdari and she used to be a head teacher and all that. And we was talking about the Tilakdaris and the Laltus and the Bullocks and all that. And we started to talk about the contribution of the Canadian mission on education in Trinidad and Tobago, especially for the East Indians, the people who was working in the cane fields. And we have to be grateful for that, for that part of it. Right? There might be other things that we might not be so happy with, but we have to be grateful for that. And your family certainly made a big impression, a big contribution towards educating the people. Well, primarily in Picton, Monkey Tongue, and Pinal, and all that. And later on, all gone in Tongue to live now, QRC. So I just thought I would
Well, actually,
mention that.
my grandfather moved around. He used to go from school to school and church to church. So he was Monkey Town, Siparia, Princess Town. He moved
Rock
around
Road and
Diamond
all that, yeah.
Village. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's the way they did it in those days. But anyway, I just found he was born speaking Hindi, and then from a large part of his life in Trinidad, he didn't speak it that much anymore. But it was on his deathbed that something propelled him back to the language of his youth and his birth. And so in calling out to God for help, he reverted to the Hindi. And of course, that's why it resonated with us. We picked it up, and probably not fully knowing what it meant, but so I wanted to honor that part of, these little stories would be forgotten if I didn't record them somehow.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
As a penal person, I could relate.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you.
Thank
I like how you said that you would be by the cowshed and you would hear him. And then, I remember as we having a cowshed and cows and tying out cows and things, so it bring back memories. This Father's Day meeting where we are sharing pieces about our father, and if not our father, influential people in our lives who have touched us. So, it bring back memories, a lot of memories. I saw we have someone new to the group. Jones. Welcome. Welcome, Jones.
Good day, good day.
Good day.
I came in from the Authors Village group.
Okay, hi. Would you like to share a piece with us?
I don't have a piece. I just saw the post and I said, oh, it would be nice to.
Okay.
It would be nice thing. I don't think I have a piece that exactly. I did a Mother's Day piece already, but I don't think I have a Father's Day piece.
Okay. That's okay.
I did one for my father at a time. it's like it's like a piece, but it's more like a personal piece. But it will be difficult for me to find that right now. If I
That's
did see the post earlier, I would have been more prepared. But I ain't as prepared. When
that's
y'all having
lovely.
a meeting again?
It will be advertised.
All right. Now I have a piece to share right now.
That's
Okay, we'll
okay.
meet every
Working and
2
all
weeks,
too, so I
Mr.
kind of
Jones, so that
multitasking now. It will be difficult for me.
That's okay.
okay, we,
Yeah, that's coming to support.
Okay.
thanks.
May I inquire something? I invited Sister June Allen Miller last time, and she came and enjoyed it, and she even contributed something. So I don't know if she has happened to bring anything to contribute this afternoon, or is just happy to join us. So could you ask if she would like to say anything? June Allen Miller. She's on the chat. You'd see her name there in the group.
Yes. Good, good afternoon, Miss June. Would you like to share with us today? Good afternoon, Miss June.
And maybe she's not hearing.
Yes. Okay. Miss June, are you there?
All right. Well, I just thought since last time she shared something with us, I thought she might have liked to say something today.
Okay. Okay. I would like to leave the floor open if anybody would like to share.
Hi.
Um,
Okay, so I left a little time today because it's been a really long time and we try to do it every open mic and we honestly have always run out of time. Um, so there's this little thing that we used to do when we were in the Davie Library, and it was a 3-word prompt, and we would take like 5 to 10 minutes to write something, and then we would share what we came up with. So instead of doing a 3-word prompt, though, I was thinking of just doing your most memorable memory with your dad, or the one lesson that your father taught you. And if we could take like 5 minutes and see what we come up with, and we can share, because it's always amazing what comes up in these sessions.
Gersha,
Mm-hmm.
I have something about my godfather, who was actually basically my acting father when I grew up here in Woodbrook. And his life lesson to me literally has been a life lesson, because as a small child, he told me, in a reference to my grandmother and my mother, who were both very bigoted colonialist ladies. He said to me, he said, always know that you love your granny. He says, but sift her words. Always sift her words, because he says, I know how she feels and how she thinks, but keep in mind that no matter the color of skin or the church or the temple you join or who you love or what you're like, he says, we're all the same, because all blood is red. And he said, you have to treat everybody alike. And that stayed with me all through my 85 years. And for that, I really have to thank my godfather, because without that, I got no income. So, and it's really helped me as a writer as well.
That's lovely. Thanks for sharing, Harold. So
mhm.
can we go on for like 5 minutes, and then we can, or do you guys just want to share?
I think I saw June's mic open, so I don't know if
Okay. Hi, Jude.
Hello. Hello, everybody. I was having trouble with the device.
No problem.
But I was saying now, my father, definitely on a Saturday night, he would take us for a walk through town. And that was the night that the Salvation Army had their own air meeting. And of course, I remember they had a carpet laid out on the ground as well, and people put their collection on this carpet. But Daddy was like all fathers, very strict and so on. And especially after our mother died, the strictness increased. I was 15 and my brother was 13 and my sister 8. And he was very strict, but loved the children and made sure that they got the best of everything that we could afford. So that night, regulation or whatever you like call it, that we always look forward to that. And of course, you would pass by somebody with a tray and you would buy some sweet toys. But I do remember those Saturday nights. And of course, you had some military ways about them when you were walking along and traffic was coming or whatever. Say Indian fire, and you had to get the air. The other things Thank you. Hello. Were you hearing me at all?
I'm not sure if you are going in and out just for me or for everyone else. Because my computer has been saying unstable internet connection this entire time.
No, I think it's
Yeah,
general.
I wasn't sure.
A lapse.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were hearing me at all.
No, we're hearing you. We're hearing you. Well, at least I was hearing you just a bit in and out, though.
Oh boy. But I'd like to thank you all for including again. I'm sorry that I didn't have time enough to get anything prepared, but it was good to hear that fathers all over the world are very strict, especially with girl children. But that was an expression of their love too. They didn't want any harm to come to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, June, for sharing with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. So, is there anyone else who would like to share with us?
Can we take the 5 minutes just to write something really quick, and then we could start shares at like 2:45?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Are we writing on our own, or is someone going to give us 3 words to choose from to write?
The topics to choose from is either the one lesson your father taught you, or one lesson your father taught you, or your favorite memory.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So we'll share at 2:45, 2:46.
Yes.
Because my time is saying 2:41 right now.
Okay, that's fine. 2:46.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So I hope everyone has a pen and paper nearby. Bye, Althea. Enjoy your night.
Mm-hmm.
Gersha?
Hi, have we reached time?
Hi, Gersha. I have a very short piece that I think might be good to read today.
Okay, no problem. But I want to get some people that wrote their shares in. I think we have a minute left. And then you can certainly read after. How's everyone on time? Can we start? Vishnu, you seem to still be writing. How much longer?
Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. All right. So we'll start with Muti. And you can
Wish
continue
ready to.
writing. We're not gonna make you stop if you're in the flow.
I think, what about, you want to start with Harold?
Harold said he had a piece though, so it's not what we did. Our pieces should be really short.
Okay,
This
all
one's
right.
very short, though, Gersha. Very short. But go ahead.
Okay, shall I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead, Mutilal. Thanks.
Okay. When I was married for about 1 year, my old girlfriend decided to check me out. I was flattered. She would pass our home and blow her horn. I would then go the road to meet her as she returned to the junction. My father, who used to sit in the hammock downstairs, observed this. I didn't realize he was looking at me until one evening when I returned from the junction. I can still remember his words for the rest of my life. He told me, young man, be happy with what you have in the home. All kept black in the night. I think that was one of his favorite expressions. For the next few days, I carefully avoided my father. Thank you.
Thank you, Mutilal. Anybody else has something that they came up with in our writing prompt? I can go. I have, you couldn't go to town without daddy. You couldn't go to town with daddy without someone hailing him out. We go to get fish, 20-minute talk. A trip to the supermarket, it is like every aisle he sees someone he knows. I used to wonder how they knew him. I remember his nickname that only his friends called him. And I would think, here we go again. That's all I got so far. So I like these sessions because you leave the meeting with something new that you kind of can elaborate on or you can take with you. Anyone else that wrote something really quick? Doesn't have to be a masterpiece that they'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. I would like to share something short. This is one of the lessons I learned from my father. Is to always believe in yourself and not what other people say. Here goes. Dear naysayers, I did it. I believe in myself. I lift myself up. You said you can't read. You want a motorbike? Guess what? I owned a motorbike, a farmer, a van, and a car. You said I can't work for anyone? Guess what? I work for myself, a successful farmer / businessman. You said I like to lie and lack discipline. Guess what? I built my house from scratch. Your tongue was my rod of discipline. my determination. Thank you. Because of you, I did it. I believed in myself. This is a true story of my father. He had primary school level education, came out of primary school, still couldn't read. Up to this day, can't read. And out of 11, 12 children, he's the most successful one. And whereas the older set, they had really good jobs at Caroni and whatnot. And everybody used to say, even with a cell phone, they was like, you can't make a phone call. He showed them he could make a phone call. He showed them he could own phones. It's and I think that's one of the greatest life lessons I learned from my father. Believe in yourself. Always believe in yourself.
Thanks, Sherry. That is really nice. I love the way how you did it in your father's voice. Wow, nice. It's amazing what you come up with in such a short amount of time.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Anyone else that would like to share?
If no one else, I think Harold wanted to share a piece.
Yes.
You ready? Yeah. Well, going back to my godfather, this is a story that he had told, and then I wrote it up. It's very, very short. It's called Gifts. Once upon a time, a king had two daughters. One girl had blue eyes, and her name was Wishful. Her sister, Dream Days, had brown eyes. They were happy children. One day, as they were playing by the castle garden wall, an old beggar came by. He looked at them and asked, "Do you have a crumb of bread to give to an old man?" The girls ran to the castle kitchen and soon brought back a large loaf of bread, the best they could find. Filled with sweetmeats, it gave off a superb aroma. The beggar thanked them and ate the bread. Then he searched his pockets and found a small black seed pod and a dried leaf. "Here, take these two things as gifts from me," he said, giving the girls the leaf and the seed pod, "for you have been so kind and generous." Looking at the dried leaf in her hand, Wishful asked, "What good is this?" "And what shall I do with this?" asked Dream Days, gazing at the black seed pod she held. "Oh, I know, they're magical," Wishful exclaimed. "Yes, that's it, isn't it? You've given us magical things," Dream Days said. "No, I'm sorry to disappoint you," answered the beggar, "but they aren't magical. I don't even know if they're any good or what you can do with them." The girls were puzzled. "Why then did you give us these gifts?" Dream Days asked. "Yes, why? I don't understand," Wishful said. "Because," answered the beggar, "they are all I have to give you." And he tipped his hat and went on his way. That's it.
Thank you, Harold.
Thanks, Harold.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Would anyone else like to share anything? Harold, I really, really love your piece about your friend that you lived across from, that you read earlier.
Yes.
I really love the piece that you read earlier about your friend, your elderly friend.
Yes, Barbara. Yes.
Barbara, yes.
Well, she had a very fancy name of her own, actually, and I've dedicated one of my books to her. Her real name was Barbara Le Baron.
Oh.
And I actually got to know her daughter and son-in-law and grandkids. They're very lovely people.
Okay, great. So we have a couple of minutes left. Would anybody like to share anything or say anything? Heather, Alicia, Mr. Motilal, anybody?
I wanted to know if how many people at least attempted the piece. I know sometimes it's a bit intimidating to share a piece that you only wrote for 5 minutes, but
I always found this used to be really fun. I remember coming to the Daybay Library when I had to do this on the spot for the first time. It was really intimidating.
no, but I used to look forward to it because I always knew whenever I came to DB for Poetry and Prose, I'm leaving with something new. Like, and those little tidbits, sometimes I just make them into like Instagram posts, so I may put them on our blog. And No one would believe it only took us 5 to 10 minutes to write.
Yes, yes, and you used to write such a long story, and I used to have like only 5 sentences.
Well, it depended on the words. The words made it easier.
Yes.
All right. Well, we are 5 minutes too. So if the group consensus, I guess we can lock off 5 minutes early, Sherry.
Yeah, sure.
You're the chairperson, so it's up to you.
Yes, Gush, because I have to go to a function in a little while. Thanks, and see everybody next week.
Yes. Have a
Yeah.
wonderful evening, everyone. Be safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks a lot, Gersha. Thanks, Modi. Really good,
Thank
good,
you.
good people
Our
today.
next
Yeah,
meeting
okay,
will be on the 23rd of June, and I believe that may be our book club meeting. I'm trying my best to get the author to attend. So once she
Okay,
can do it in June, we'll have her, or we may have her in July. Depends on her schedule.
Okay, not a
okay,
problem.
Gush, bye. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
everybody. Be safe.